This series contains themes of violence against women and child abuse. Listener discretion is advised. More than 40 years ago, 2 teenage girls disappeared from the beachside suburbs of southern Sydney. Elaine Johnson was 16, Kerry Ann Joel was 17. Gone without a trace. Never to be heard from again. For more than 4 decades, Elaine's family have searched in vain for answers. This is their story.
There's a hole in my heart the size of an island. Islands can be big and small. My love for you will never go away.
There's a question Helen has asked thousands of times in the last 45 years. Have you seen Elaine? She can't say for sure how many times she's gotten the truth, but no answer has ever led her back to her sister. Helen was just 12 when in early 1980, her beloved eldest sister left the family home in Cornell, a once backwater suburb of southern Sydney. Elaine, then 16, headed out after an argument with her father Clifford over an end-of-year house party that got out of hand. So out of hand, Clifford's work car was driven into the fibro at the front of the house. The Johnsons had left for a month-long camping trip a few days before Christmas in 1979. It was meant to be their first camping holiday as a family, but in the end, they left without Elaine, who made herself scarce as her family packed up the car to leave. Inclement weather forced the Johnsons to cut their holiday short. They arrived home unexpectedly early, to Elaine and an equally unexpected sight. Their family home had been trashed. Clifford was furious. He gave Elaine, the apple of his eye, an ultimatum to shape up or ship out. In the heat of the moment, she chose to leave. In the early days after Elaine left home, even speaking her name in the Johnson household was frowned upon.
Mum and Dad never talked about it and never discussed it between themselves after that.
That's Wendy, Elaine's sister.
I didn't really understand she was actually missing.
Here's what Helen remembers from that time.
We didn't go around saying it too much because we were always told by Dad we weren't allowed to talk about it. Dad always closed up his feelings, I think, but Dad just went more and more to the pub, and then we just sort of, I think things changed a lot after that. I still done my athletics and stuff like that, but we didn't go out on the weekends like we did anymore.
Helen and Wendy have never forgotten their sister. As you heard in a previous episode, in the early days after Elaine went missing, they relied on news from family and friends about her whereabouts. This continued after the Johnson family moved out of Cronulla in 1983. The New South Wales Department of Housing offered them subsidised housing in a suburb an hour away. It was an opportunity their parents couldn't refuse, a chance for a permanent home. As the sisters got older, they broadened their search, and by the mid-1980s, Helen had a new ally in her search crew, a fun-loving boyfriend named Joe. I want to take a moment to explain just how involved Joe has been in the search for Elaine. Helen and Joe first met one day on a local train ride with friends and got chatting. Joe knew of Helen. He had seen her years earlier at a local end-of-year picnic, but had never spoken until the train ride. A relationship quickly blossomed.
She got my number from one of the friends and stuff, and we ended up chatting for quite some time.
That's Joe.
When she was ringing me up, she was phoning me up from this phone box, and I said, "Where are you phoning me from?" And she goes, "Oh, just on the corner of this road. I'll just walk up from my house." And the phone box was about 80 metres from my house, and she'd been ringing me from there for a few weeks. And then I said, "Just wait there a minute." And I ran down to the phone box and knocked on the door. So it was almost like we were meant to be together.
This year, Helen and Joe will mark 42 years together. Almost all of those have been spent, in some shape or another, searching for Elaine. Joe never knew Elaine. He had seen her once at the picnic day, the same day he first laid eyes on Helen.
My grandparents used to go to Gunnamatta Bay every year for their end-of-year work picnic. And they used to give out lollies and tickets and stuff for the kids. We'd have competitions and running races and stuff.
Here's Joe again.
And there was these two local girls that kept jumping into the races and winning all the races. and they were getting all the tickets and the free lollies and everything. And it was Helen and Wendy. Then their brother Alan came down, and he came down to tell them they had to go back for some chips because Mum had lunch ready. And then once Alan saw what they were doing and saw all the free food and lollies, and he got caught up in it. So then Elaine showed up, and this is the only time I ever saw Elaine, but she stood up on the path up near the road, arms folded, really unimpressed that she had to come all the way down for these little brats who wouldn't do as they were told and come out for lunch.
Even after Helen and Joe started a family in 1985, they continued to search. The couple and Wendy would plaster missing persons leaflets around Cronulla and get articles published in the local media. Then, as Helen got older, she started working on a timeline of Elaine's movements after she left home. She focused on places Elaine had likely visited. The first place she looked was the local caravan parks. Here's Helen.
We went to Warrenora Caravan Park. We spoke to the oldest residents, but none of them had lived there long enough. One was about 2 years out from living there back at that time. The owners had left.
Then, years later, Helen was told one of the last people to claim to have seen Elaine and Kerry before the disappearance was her older brother Alan. Police documents state Alan alleges he saw Elaine on October 4, 1980, at a train station in the Shire. Alan was getting off the train after a trip to Queensland to visit their younger brother Stuart. Elaine was on the platform opposite. Here's Helen again.
He said, I only got to speak to her for a couple of minutes. He said, we were opposite sides of the track. I said, what are you doing? Where are you going? And she said, I'm sleeping in the bush at Menai.
Alan is yet to decide if he wishes to participate in this podcast. Over the years, Helen has asked Alan about the day at the train station.
I've questioned him a few times about it over the years. And he said, well, she just said, you know the track, Helen, you know the track. Everyone used to go to the track. I said, I don't know what you're going on about, Alan. The track, you just go just like that, just like that. And that's how he pointed, just like that, just like that. And I'm like, so we drove up there, we went just like that, just like that. And we're like, the tracks are at Loftus, Orderly and that. That's not just like that, just like that.
Wendy, Helen and Helen's husband Joe have driven down to check out the area they think Alan was talking about. Here's what Wendy remembers.
And he said, we know the track. It goes this way and it goes that way, yeah. And we did go look after that, and exactly what he said was right.
I'm being deliberately vague here about the exact location in case it's searched by police in future. As for what they found down in the bush track, here's Helen.
We found on the left-hand side some bush, and there was an old car down there, and it was a 1970s car and a camping thing.
Okay.
So we dug it up and turned over the car and went through the whole area, but we didn't see anything.
It wasn't the first time Helen physically dug into the earth during her search, or the last. Years later, she would travel north to a lookout on the New South Wales Central Coast on a tip-off. It was a place she would again dig for clues to Elaine's whereabouts. The information reached Helen through a second-hand source. It was from someone who knew someone. Some of the details fit. Yet when Helen questioned the person with the information, their story changed. The information was just a rumour. Then it was something they saw on TV. The information was suddenly less credible, but it didn't stop Helen searching.
We found what we believe could have been the old Mooney lookout. We walked all around there and researched the area. I dug up a few areas. We had an Aboriginal tracker go out there. We couldn't find anything, but I found some rope and hog ties. But Yeah, so we don't know what to make of that. So we thought, look, we're not going to stuff around. We'll just take it to the police. So we went to Tootley Police Station and they dismissed it.
I've contacted New South Wales Police about these claims. I'm yet to hear back. Helen and her family have enlisted countless others to help with their search. Among them, professionals, including Chris Darcy. Chris heads up Search Dog Sydney, an organisation that works to track down missing persons. Helen and Chris met at a family and friends of missing persons event years ago.
She emailed asking if we could assist in any further investigations into the case and whether or not our dogs were capable of assisting her in furthering that search, because at the moment it would pretty much been turned into a cold case.
Chris and I spoke at length about Elaine's case and the work he's already done. Some of that is sensitive, but here's what he could share with me.
Originally we started on asking as much information from Helen as possible, and Helen's been very much involved in the case, and she's provided us with a lot of information as well as any other reports that were available to her from the police, etc. And from there, we were able to determine a couple of areas of interest to be searched.
Can you kind of give an estimate of how many areas could be searched in this case of Elaine and Kerry?
We've got 4 marks of interest at this stage.
Chris hasn't shared those areas of interest. It's more than likely that his team will revisit them in the future. He did share what happens during a search.
With our human remains dogs, we generally work them on a 20-foot leash so that we can really grid the area and make sure that we're searching the area thoroughly. Primarily, we use what's called the trained final response. So, for my particular boy, it's a bark. So he will stand there and he will look at the object, and he'll stand there and bark until I get to it. And that's because he's trained for disaster areas, that he may be working in an area that I can't access, and that will let me know that there's something there.
Many of the leads Helen and Wendy have chased down suggest that Kerry and Elaine met with foul play. But others have given them hope that their sister might still be alive. The first glimmer came one day in 1999 when Wendy had a visitor to her home. We can't tell you his real name, so we'll call him Jesse. During the visit, Jesse noticed a framed photo of Elaine in Wendy's lounge room. Her visitor looked at the photo intently before saying something that shocked her.
And he went, "Oh, I know her," just like that. He goes, "Oh, I know her, Crystal." And I went, "No, that's Elaine, my sister." And he goes, "It's Crystal."
The photo Jessie saw that day showed a bright-eyed Elaine in her Cronulla High School uniform from the late 1970s. It was from her student photo day.
So he came in and he was definite.
Straight away, no hesitation. He sat on my lounge and went, "I know her, Crystal."
Jesse didn't wish to speak for this podcast. To protect his identity, we have chosen not to reveal his connection to the woman he claims to know as Crystal. What we can say is that after speaking with Jesse, Wendy and Helen's search for her sister shifted north again. In previous episodes, you've heard how the Johnson family and some of Elaine and Kerry's friends thought the girls had left the Shire to head north, how Elaine's family went searching to King's Cross, and years later, Helen and Kerry's best friend Annie headed off on separate searches of a small township north of Sydney called Gillaby, specifically in search of a motocross park. This time, the search north took Helen and Wendy to Newcastle's brothel district.
No, so the whole idea was to get some sort of confirmation of whether or not what this bloke was telling us was even feasible.
That's Joe. He was with Helen and Wendy when they headed out one Saturday night in 1999 to drive around asking about Elaine.
The idea was to hit as many brothels at once to make sure we got unbiased intel and just honest intel from different people.
At each stop, Joe stayed in the car while Helen and Wendy went in to ask questions. Their brother Stuart had died years earlier when he was just 21. The sisters used that tragedy to get in the door. They then said they wanted to share the news that he passed with their sister.
So they use that as the excuse, and they're just saying, we're trying to find her. We know she's been working in the area. She works by the name Crystal. And some of them even said, yeah, Elaine. They used her name.
As well as using the name Crystal, the woman also went by Elaine.
They said Elaine has worked in the area. We haven't seen her for a while, that sort of thing. But it was a pretty intense night because we had to sort of hit it and get out quick. And even being in the car, I didn't know who was going to react and how they were going to react. But it was pretty fruitful. We got some good information which confirmed what the man was telling us, which was the whole purpose of the night. But even with that one, yet again, we've just kept running into brick walls.
No one came forward after the brothel visits with any information about Elaine's whereabouts, though Helen did get an unusual phone call after returning home.
I did have Crystal ring me at the end of it all and say, I'd like to be your sister, but I'm not.
Still to this day, Helen questions whether that caller was telling the truth.
Straight away, I'm like, this is a decoy because you just said she'd been working for years and they've been doing 6 weeks run, and she's saying she hasn't even been in Australia that long.
Then, not long after the night drive around Newcastle, a woman visited Helen at her work. That woman told her, quote unquote, keep looking for Elaine. To protect her identity, we've chosen not to share the woman's connection to Helen's missing sister. Over the years, Helen and Wendy have considered the woman known by some as Crystal might not have been Elaine, and rather be a case of mistaken identity. Either way, Wendy says, the false hope was unnerving. It always is.
And that's the scary part, isn't it? Because we've had it before.
This isn't the only time the sisters were hopeful and then left wondering. Around the same time as they visited the Newcastle brothels, Helen and Wendy placed an advertisement in the missing persons section of a weekly Australian magazine. They received a letter from a woman in Western Australia who claimed a local woman could be Elaine. As it turned out, it wasn't. A few years later, in the 2000s, Wendy had an unusual experience when she went to apply for her driver's licence. She was told there was an issue about an outstanding driving offence, a speeding fine.
And I said, oh, how can that be true? I said, because I haven't been driving before this. And they said, no, there is a warrant out. My name, my date of birth and everything. So I ended up going to Kurri Police Station with Helen, and they said that, yes, there was a warrant out. And I said, well, I haven't driven before this. I'm trying to get their licence, so it just can't be me. And they looked into it for us.
Wendy was told the speeding fine was recorded in Woolloomooloo, near King's Cross. But at the time of the offence, Wendy was living in the Hunter Valley region. I've contacted New South Wales Police for further details about the speeding fine. I'm yet to hear back. In mid-2019, 39 years after Elaine's disappearance, Helen was with her husband Joe and one of their daughters when they spotted a woman who they thought looked like Elaine at a McDonald's on the New South Wales Central Coast. When Helen spoke about this, Joe was making lunch in the kitchen. It's a little noisy, but bear with us.
We went to see Charlie in the chocolate factory and we're coming back and it was about 12 a.m. in the morning. There was hardly anyone at Wyong McDonald's, and I went into the toilet and I looked at this lady and then I came out. I went to the car and I went, did you see her? And before I even finished, Joe went, oh, the girl that looks like Elaine. And I went, yeah. And we started taking pictures of her through the window.
Helen has an age progression of Elaine's school photo, what she would have looked like later in life. The woman from that night did bear a strong resemblance to the photo. She also shared some similarities to the Johnson family relatives. Unfortunately, as Helen knew well by then, it wasn't as simple as just walking up to her and asking, "Are you my sister?"
The thing is, people go, why don't you just go up? Or you freak them out and then they run and stuff like that. So we try to get as much evidence or whatever first before then approaching. Anyway, we were going to talk to her. My daughter opened the car door as she walked by, and she took off like boom, like that.
Oh.
Got into this car.
Yeah.
So instead, Helen watched as the woman got into the back seat of a car. From what she could tell, the car wasn't a taxi or an Uber. She didn't see where it went. She noted the number plate and later tracked the car down to Lemon Tree Passage, near Newcastle, through luck. She followed up a number of people who say they recognised the woman as a Lemon Tree Passage resident. So far, all leads have come up empty. But, as always, Helen holds on to hope. Next week, on Out from the Cold, searching for Elaine.
It's still one of the most significant unsolved crimes in Australia. It's still one of those deep mysteries.
Searching for Elaine is a series from Out from the Cold, part of Happy Tuesday Productions. A special thanks to Helen and Wendy and the extended Johnson Cooper family for their time and trust. Thanks also to the Joel family, Elaine and Kerry's friends, and anyone who helped with information about the girls. It all counts. If you have information about Elaine Johnson or Kerry Ann Joel, you can get in touch at Help Find Elaine Johnson on social media or contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. This episode was produced by me, Kate Kachor, and Sally Spicer. Editing by Dan McHugh and Matt Haywood. Artwork by Nic Watts.
There's a hole in my heart the size of an island. There's a hole in my heart the size of an island. Islands can be big and small. My love for you will never go away. My love for you will never go away.